If you have an investor mindset like me, then you've probably heard the term creative financing. It's being talked about a lot by people like Pace Morby on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and honestly, I get tons of YouTube ads for it. In this current market where homes are sitting on the market for a little bit longer and prices are not the COVID prices we were seeing in 2021 and 2022, we're going to hear a lot more about this. And you probably have some questions. Like, what is creative financing? Is creative financing safe? Who can use creative financing? And maybe even, can selling my home using creative financing make me more money? We're going to answer these questions and many more in this video. Hello, my name is Meagan Black with eXp Realty, and I'm an agent and an investor located here in the Raleigh-Durham Triangle. If you're interested in selling your home or interested in buying a home, please reach out to the number below. While I can help with creative financing, I can also help with traditional methods as well, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions at all. I started in the real estate market in 2018 when I bought my very first home. I used traditional financing and did what is called house hacking. House hacking is where you rent out rooms in your home and you only end up paying either a small portion of your mortgage, or you can actually have the tenants pay for your full mortgage. After doing this, I really saw how real estate could be life-changing. I really enjoyed making that passive income, and I wanted to make more. But at that time, I really had no money and definitely could not qualify for traditional financing or put the 20% down that's normally required for an investment loan. So I started researching about how to get started in real estate with no money or low money down. I learned a ton about creative financing. My goal is to help others learn and to create wealth for as many families as I possibly can. First off, let's dive into what creative financing actually is. Creative financing is honestly a very broad term that a lot of investors use, but basically just means we're not going to be using a traditional bank or traditional lender for a mortgage. We're going to be using a different method, a creative method. There are about 27 different creative financing methods, but we're going to stick to 5 today, and we'll dive more into each method in future videos. Be sure to like and follow our page so you can be the first to watch. The first method that a lot of people hear about and know about but don't quite understand is called wholesaling. You know those signs that say we buy houses for cash, or even those immediate offers from places like Mark Spain or OfferPad? Normally, those people are using a method called wholesaling. Wholesaling is when you're offering about 50 cents on the dollar to a homeowner, getting the home under contract, and then selling the contract to buy that property to an end buyer for a certain amount of money. A lot of people wonder why someone would sell their home for 50 cents on the dollar. And usually it's about ease. One of the transactions I did as a wholesale investor was with an older lady and her son. They had a property in Raleigh and the tenants hadn't paid in months. She was in the hospital and she didn't want to leave her son with the burden of trying to sell this home, or even worse, it getting stuck in probate and his money being tied up in the system. I was able to come in and offer her almost $10,000 over what she was expecting, and we closed in 5 days. Now, normally homes that are being sold using this method are in pretty rough condition, and unfortunately the seller is usually in a rough situation. Buyers are looking for sellers that have the 3 Ds: death, divorce, and disease. I started wholesaling in 2019 and I quickly realized it is not for me. I did not like having only one solution, and that being such a crappy solution, even if it sometimes is necessary. I got my license not too long after doing a few wholesale deals, so I could offer my clients every possible solution. This is a method I only use if someone's looking to close in 7 days or less, and generally try to push sellers to sell using a different method even still. However, as an investor, it is the cheapest way for someone to start investing in real estate. It can be helpful to some people just looking to get their foot in the door. Be careful though, a heads up. Be prepared to make a lot of phone calls and get a lot of angry people and a lot of no's before you get a yes. It is not for the weak-hearted. The second method and easiest method is what is called seller financing. Seller financing is where the seller holds the mortgage just like a bank would. Basically, we are cutting out the middleman, the big banks, and the seller gets paid just the same way the bank would. This is a great option for most people, especially that have rental homes or like the idea of passive income, but don't want to deal with tenants. I have personally bought several homes using this method. The first deal I ever bought as an investment property was bought through seller financing. I paid $28,000 for a home in Danville, Virginia. I put $1,500 down and paid the seller $600 a month for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, I had a balloon payment and paid off the remaining balance. A balloon payment is a larger than usual, normally a one-time payment at the end of the loan term that basically just pays off the remaining balance. This was a great way to get started as the rent was paying for the property. And ultimately, I came out of pocket around $3,000 for a home that brings me in almost $650 a month. For a seller, this was also a great opportunity. If a seller is wanting more than the house is worth, they don't want to pay an agent, or they like the idea of getting paid in monthly payments, this is a great idea for you. Instead of a big lump sum, you can still get a down payment, of course, but you would get a much smaller bulk payment than if you were to, say, sell it on the market. It's what we like to call delayed gratification. You get a little bit less up front, but you get more on the back end. The third method is called subject to. Subject to is a great opportunity for people wanting to sell that may either be upside down on their mortgage, meaning they owe more than the house is worth, or again, the seller is wanting more money than the market allows for. Now, this method is one of the best, especially for someone that is in pre-foreclosure or foreclosure and doesn't want to have that foreclosure on their record. Buying a property subject to means a buyer essentially takes over the seller's remaining mortgage balance without changing the loan to the new buyer's name. The mortgage stays in the seller's name and the deed ownership goes to the new buyer. For a seller in a tough situation, this can be a great opportunity to increase your credit by getting the late payments caught up and by having the buyer now making the monthly payments on time every month in your name. Now, there is a caveat with this method, which is called the due on sale clause. The due on sale clause is a portion of your mortgage that states that a bank can force the loan balance to be due in full at the time of sale. However, there are ways around this. Many attorneys will steer you away from subject to because they're unfamiliar with the laws and how it works. I have a wonderful attorney that I've partnered with here in Cary, North Carolina. He will do everything possible to make sure all parties are protected. I have had several buyers and sellers use this method, and I'll tell you, 99% of the time, this will never come up. The fourth method is actually a combination of seller financing and subject to called a hybrid. A hybrid creative deal is one where the seller keeps the existing mortgage in place and seller finances the equity that they have in the home. For example, I recently did a deal where the seller wanted $565,000 for their home. We listed it on the market at $525,000, hoping to get over list price, and unfortunately, we didn't even get an offer at list price. The seller was living in a different state and did not want to go through the hassle of renting it just to put it back on the market next year. We ended up selling that property to a buyer using the hybrid method. The seller now gets the $565,000 he wanted. He paid $0 in agent commissions. He got $25,000 down, and he's not responsible for anything if something were to break or go wrong on the property. It's a 2 to 3 year balloon, meaning the balance will be due in 2 to 3 years depending on certain terms of the contract. The buyer is paying the existing mortgage of $1,665 a month for the next 2 to 3 years and will pay off the balance at the end of the balloon. The rent for this property is between $2,800 to $3,400 a month. The buyer is getting a phenomenal deal and has a property that is immediately cash flowing. And the seller, he is getting full price plus some, especially considering that he didn't have to pay over $30,000 in agent fees. And all he has to do is just wait a little while to get his full balance plus some. He could have waited to put the house on the market at $565. He could have rented it out, but we all know that renters can destroy your house in a year, much less two. And he would have also most likely lost the additional $30,000 in agent commissions to sell the property on the market with me. The hybrid method can be phenomenal now, as you can get more money than with traditional financing, and you're helping a buyer most likely have a better interest rate and monthly payment. Again, there are pros and cons, but ultimately it's a great strategy for a lot of people. The fifth method of creative financing we're going to discuss today is called a lease option. A lease option is an agreement between the owner of a home and an investor or tenant that gives the tenant the right to purchase the home for a set amount at a set time. Generally, the tenant pays an upfront option fee and an additional amount each month that goes towards rent and a down payment. This is good for someone who is interested in seller financing or subject to, but it's a little bit nervous about the buyer actually making the monthly payments on time. This would be something that would give the seller the reassurance needed that the buyer would be honorable and make their payments. The buyer can make sure that a portion of their payments goes towards the balance, and it's ultimately a win-win situation. Creative financing is all about creating a situation where both the seller and the buyer win. We look at the problem the seller is facing. Maybe it's wanting more than the property is worth. Maybe it's wanting a passive income, catching up with late payments, or needing some money down. And we do our best to structure a deal in the manner that the seller gets exactly what they need. These are just a few methods investors use, and if you will like and follow, I'll be posting more about these methods and more so you can learn different tools to have in your tool belt. If you're a seller and you're interested in selling to get more money quicker, reach out to the number below. Let me know in the comments which method you like best and any questions you may have about creative financing. I'll see you again on the next video. Make it a great day.